Hey all, it's Zach Loeks. We are really excited to be approaching planting day for the Edible Tree Program and to help you get in your yard, get in the ground and plant an edible ecosystem spot. An edible tree with companion plants that can become an education, propagation, inspiration site, an EPI site, meaning that it is capable of educating you and your community about what plants grow well in your neighborhood and how to go about preparing and planting a proper garden site that has edible biodiversity. That's the education part, or the E of EPI. And propagation is about what happens over the years as your plants spread and fill in all the rest of the area of your typha mulch. The asparagus is going to grow and multiply. The strawberries will grow and multiply. The hyssop will self-seed itself. The violets will grow. The tree will grow. And you can actually save seeds, harvest suckers, cut scion wood off your tree and graft it and spread it into your community. That's the propagation part. It can help you transition more of these plants into your yard and into your community. And the inspiration, well, that comes when spring is full of blossoms that enrich your eyes and your sense of smell, when the fall is full of fruits and flavors and you're able to eat and enjoy, and your neighborhood is inspired to do something similar, and over time your yard and your community becomes the type of human habitat that we all want to live in, a human habitat that is truly edible and biodiverse for you, your family, and your community, and ultimately creating the sort of ecological footprint we all need on this planet Earth. So we'll see you out in your community, and watch the education video to learn the step-by-step process of installing your planter and planting your edible ecosystem, your EPI spot. So here's how to lay out for your edible ecosystem spot for your edible tree and companion plants. Basically, you want to measure off from either the foundation of your house or off from the sidewalk. So here's the street, here's the median, here's the sidewalk, here's the edge of the sidewalk right here, here's the edge of your house right here. You want your edible hedge to be parallel to these, and one option is to put it, closer to the sidewalk, closer to your house, or in the middle. The middle is a great spot because it allows you to line up on either side. Now, if you measure off everything in 5-foot increments, it'll allow you to place either our 4 or 5-foot planter inside. Regardless of what size planter you have, we think of it as a 5-foot space. It always will have 4 feet of soil inside. So we want to measure off in increments to make sure we can add planter rows on either side and along here. So if I measure off 5 feet and 5 feet to 10 feet here, and I just stick a landscape flag or make a mark in the soil, spray paint, whatever you want to do, and then I measure off another location here and another location over here, I can then stick a stake in the ground if I want on either side with a string line and run it along those stakes, and then I can double check my measurement against that string line in 3 or 4 locations to make sure I have a parallel line that's exactly 10 feet from the foundation of my house, or it could be an exact measurement from the sidewalk. Basically, your sidewalk and your house are very unlikely to be precisely parallel, so using one or the other is the good way to go. You're never going to get it to be parallel to both, but try one or the other, see how you like it. We've chosen to go off the house since this is your yard and it's your house, so let's square it to our own structure that we own. So let's say we decide to do 10 feet. This allows us, if we want, to put in other gardens using 5-foot increments, 2 strips of them, and then you also have the same opportunity here. Then measuring off here, we want to do at least 5 feet here, or it could be that we want to put our planter further in the middle, but basically we want to see how multiples of 5 foot fit along this length, knowing that we can add to this. If you have a fruit tree, you are either going to want to place it kind of in the center, or you're going to want to place it right here, knowing that you could get a fruit tree added here. If you place it more in the center, then when we have additional guild programs, you can opt for the tea meadows or a berry guild to go on either side. If you put it off to the side, you could get a fruit tree to be planted here, And you could then plant one here with a berry guild or a tea meadow in the middle. And then the sides, we always leave these for lower growing guilds that you can add over time. But right now you maintain it in lawn. So that's the best way to site it. You just measure out one person on each end of a tape measure. You make sure that tape is held tucked straight against the foundation wall. You pull it taut and you make sure it's exact measurement. You do need to hold it taut. So you say hold and then you pull and you check. You arrange flags and then you use those flags to make a string guide, and that helps you lay it out. And then you can check the measurement distance here to this corner and this corner, and you keep checking these measurements, 10 feet here, 5 feet here, or whatever measurement you choose. If the site ends up out here, it's 10 feet and 10 feet if you end up planting this middle one. But you keep checking those initially before you double dig. But then after you site it, that's when it really matters. It's okay if you work up the ground. It's not a perfect squared piece of ground being worked up, but you do want to make sure to square that planter once you set it down into that site. Okay, let's look at how we go about planting and building our planter. So basically, you have your piece of lawn here, and you have your landscape flags that have marked off all four corners where your planter is going to go. Whether you have a 5-foot square planter or a 4-foot square planter, the interior dimensions of soil are exactly the same. You still have a plantable area of exactly 4 feet square. The rustic, traditionally cut 2x6 cedar planter version sits upright. It's pre-made, so you set it in place. Makes it very, very easy for install. The 6x6 version is a bit of a heavier planter, and it allows you to adjust it, but it does require installation itself. So using the 2x6 model, this planter will set right into your yard. It has a nice traditional rough cut cedar look. It's quite beautiful, and it'll really allow you to add other planters over the years. What has to happen with this is that you set it over top of the land that you have double dug, and you make sure to square it back up. So check your measurement. If it's 10 feet from your foundation, check it to this back corner, 10 feet. Check it to this corner. Check here that you have your 5 feet or 10 feet or 15 feet, whatever you've chosen, and make sure that it's parallel to the foundation and squared to the driveway or the neighbor's driveway with your cedar planter sitting on top of your soil that's been turned. And then what you can do is actually stand on your planter, push it in, mark an impression into that earth where that planter is. Really press down and then lift it up, and you can see where this planter, where the 2-inch, it's a full 2-inch, marks down into the ground, right down like this and right down like this. Now, what that allows you to do is then to see that line and to actually dig down with a spade. Now, remember, a spade is usually a larger, flatter, straight version of a shovel. A shovel has a scoop. It's usually shaped like this, and there's a scoop. A spade is good for cutting new ground, and it can be used for edging, and the shovel's better for turning ground that's loose or like applying compost. So use a spade or a lawn edging tool and cut straight down about 4 to 5 inches exactly on the outside of where you have your squared planter marking into your soil that's been double dug. Cut straight down all the way around. This is where your weed barrier, your plastic membrane is going to lay in. Then what you do is you come along and you make perpendicular cuts along that every, say, 4 to 6 inches, and then you come and make a diagonal cut towards it. This allows you to pull out material really easily because you've actually literally made cookie cutters of, say, areas that are these little pizza wedges that are 5 inches deep by, say, 4 inches wide, or whatever size you decide to do. And that soil comes right out and drops just adjacent. Do this in a very clean way because it'll help you fill it back in a tidy way. Flip it over with the grass down, and then check your cut and make sure it's really nice. Set your planter back in. One of the beauties of having the planter pre-made, which we've gone ahead and done with the 2x6 rustic cedar model, is that it allows you to really actually site based on a perfectly square planter rather than have to install the planter yourself and screw it in. You'll be able to set that planter down, look at it, check that this is lining up. If it isn't quite lining up, and square it again, make sure to square it again, measure the 10, 10, and 5 or whatever length, square it up, and if you need to take a little more soil off, you can. You want a nice straight cut exactly in line with the sides of your 2x6 on the outside. Then once that's all perfect, you can set this back in, double check it, then you remove it again, and then you can actually use a softer cardboard, craft paper, or newspaper can be really good, and you actually line the newspaper underneath where your planter is going to go and then tuck it into the hole. It doesn't have to be a full thickness of newspaper. It could be, maybe like a half thickness of newspaper, or even just like 6 sheets. You want the flexibility here. We're already going to have a membrane going in here to protect, but it gives a little extra buffer from grass sneaking in from the side, and it gives a nice soft cushion for the planter to set on that's not thick cardboard, which can cause your planter to float a little bit. So better to have a newspaper or just one of the thinner pieces of cardboard or craft paper. And then once you get that folded in, you have a friend helping you, you come and set this back in, you make sure that this is sitting on top, holding this down, and it should come over past the planter a few inches, maybe 6 inches, and over onto this rougher land. This means that the rougher land might be pushing up a little bit, but mostly underneath the planter, it's actually firm and it's the level of the yard around. So you're making sure that this point that is right under your planter all the way around its perimeter, right? So all the spaces that are literally right here, 2 inches thick, here 2 inches thick, here 2 inches thick, and here are 2 inches thick. This area is level to your yard with newspaper underneath it, and that newspaper is going to come up in the inside here. So it would actually look like this, and then this portion here is tucked into the trench. So it's actually tucked down, so you won't see this portion anymore. It's tucked into the trench, but that's the layout of that newspaper. And then it's in the inside there. So then what's going to happen here is you actually have this sitting here nicely, and then you come in and you put your cardboard over top. But before you do that, you want to find the center by measuring out 2 feet from all sides, and find the center 2 feet, 2 feet, 2 feet, 2 feet, and dig a bit more of a hole there and really break up the soil there. And if you take your bare root tree and you stretch the longest root out, you can actually see how long a hole you might need. For the apple, it could be a hole that's like, going down, following that root, but it doesn't have to necessarily be a big hole. It's just that you want to sneak that root down a little bit deeper. And then what you do is you actually will come and put your cardboard over top, measure this area again, and cut a slice in the cardboard that's about 12 inches by 12 inches. Make an X in there, and that X is going to designate where you put the tree through. And you've already worked the soil there, and then you open that X back, you fold that flat back, and you dig down, and you just pull that longest root down in and cover it in so it sticks in there, and then stand your tree up, fold the cardboard back. You can make little adjustment cuts with an X-Acto knife. Always watch your fingers when you're using an X-Acto knife and wear gloves, and just make a little cuts, or use scissors if you want. That can be a little bit easier in terms of when you're trimming around the tree. Put that tree in there, firm in the soil around the tree a bit, and then you can go ahead and add a little bit of your bagged soil. You have these 3 bags of soil. You can add a little bit of your bagged soil just to help keep your tree straight. And then you want to make a little cut in the cardboard about 4 inches, 2 to 4 inches away from your tree, and stick your 4-foot long, 1-inch square oak stake in, and actually use a mallet or a rubber mallet or a heavy hammer and just hammer it in. Definitely watch your fingers and wear a glove. Hammer it in so that it's about a foot into the ground, sticking out about 3 feet. And then you can use your drip tape tie, and you just wrap the drip tape tie around once or twice, and then just do a double knot about halfway up the trunk. This will hold your tree up now while you finish the job, and in the future it'll give a little more support. If you know that you have a windier side of your yard, if the wind, you could say, yep, the wind is mostly blowing from the west, you put the stake on the windier side. So if the wind's coming from here, I have the stake here. Most neighborhoods is pretty sheltered, so you can just make a decision. Basically, it's hard to really assess a windy side unless you're on a corner lot or you have a place where you know the wind is blowing. Then what you're gonna do here is come over here and you're gonna get a biodegradable pot with your asparagus, and it goes in the positioning that's right to the side of it. Depending on if you're facing, your front is facing south, it'll be to the left of the tree, and if the front of your planter, the front being where the street is down here, is facing north, the asparagus will be on the right side. And you'll place that pot with about 6 inches or 4 to 6 inches off from the inside of the cedar. You'll place it in there, and if you need to wiggle it down into the cardboard a little bit, you can, or you can cut a hole by tracing it and then just cutting that hole out and really set that in there so that the top lip of the biodegradable pot is in line with the top of your cedar planter. So now that you have your tree in, it's down, you have a little bit of soil holding it, you have your stake in, you've tied it with your reused drip tape as a tree support, and you have your asparagus pot in there, you have your cardboard covering over, everything is nicely situated here. You can go ahead and put your weed barrier in now. The weed barrier you could actually put in ahead of planting or after. I might actually recommend putting it in ahead of time. I'm just going to say that a little bit of a tip here actually is to go ahead and put your soil bags on the corners of your planter to help hold it in position once you've locked it on here. So put your soil bags so that they're actually weighing across the corners here. Imagine this is the aerial view. I actually would put your soil bags here, just set them on the corners, set your Typha here. It'll help hold and stabilize this so that while you're in this stage where you have the newspaper and the cardboard, but you haven't put soil in to help lock it in, those bags will actually help lock it in. So square, measure 10 feet, measure 10 feet, measure 5 feet or so, and then make sure it's nice and square, and then weigh it down so it stays in position. Then you will wrap your grass edging around here. And the best place to start with your grass edging is whichever side you feel like you're going to expand your hedge. So if you're going to expand your hedge going this way, then start halfway here with your grass edging and go like this. And do the opposite if you think you're going to expand that way. And the reason is then you can unhook this in the future if you get a second spot. Remember, if you take good care of this, you may be eligible for another spot with free plants, material, everything. So you can unhook this edging, but the next spot up to it, that's part of the value of using the 2x6 method, is actually it's really nice tight fit, and you can easily just screw them in to really make them anchor nicely, and you just then run this weed barrier edging this way and connect it to the next round of weed barrier, etc. And you keep doing that as many spots as you like. So now that this is way down the corners, you run this weed barrier edging. The trick here is to make sure the edging just comes up above the cedar a half inch, really no more. So it just has remember this has this little like a curly Q lip, and it just runs down on the outside of the newspaper, and then it runs around the whole thing like this. And so you get this 4-inch weed barrier, this 4-inch grass edging. I want to call it weed barrier, but it's kind of like grass edging weed barrier right around the outside. And then you fill this soil back in, and make sure to tamp it down, press it down, make sure it's nice and packed along in there. You may need to add a little bit of extra soil. If you want, you can have a little bit of some of the soil inside just to add to it, but or maybe an extra bag of black earth, for a couple bucks can add to that a little bit. And this is going to get seeded in clover here once it's all packed in. But make sure to step on it, pack it in. Then what you're going to do is you're going to start to fill this planter in with your soil. So you'll go in and fill this with both of your bags of soil, 3 bags, and fill it in like this. And once it's full up and even and leveled out, you'll actually step on the tree. You'll hold the tree with your hands like this, and you'll step on either side of it, and you'll straighten it and make sure it's really nice and straight. adjust it. The stake should be really well firm. The stake should be straight up. So check the stake when you're hammering it in to make sure you're actually not having a lean. Sometimes it's hard to tell when you're actually the one hammering it, so have someone tell you, oh, pull it a little more this way. But you want to step on that tree a little bit. It's not compacting. It's helping those roots feel anchored in the soil, and then they'll re-loosen that soil that you've already loosened. That's the benefit of double digging underneath it. And then you fill all this in, and then you go about following the design pattern. Remember, we have that image on the website. You have all your transplants here. You have 2 violets. Remember, they're going to go over on these sides if this is facing south. You have your fern. It's going to go on the north side, directly in line. You have your strawberry. That's going to go on the south side, directly in line. Your rhubarb is going to go in this back corner. Your giant hyssop is going to go in this front corner. And then what's going to happen is that once all that is in and planted, then you'll break open your typha mulch and you'll spread your typha mulch. And one of the tricks is when you open up the typha mulch, you'll find that there are chunks that come out as little packed, sort of flat sections that are actually packed. Those are really good to put along the edges right up against your planter because they really keep the grass out and the weeds out, and then break up the rest in between. Tuck it around all the plants. Make sure everything is snug in. Your asparagus planter, you don't have to cover it with typha mulch, but you can, and then you'll remove it. The trick with the asparagus is that as the asparagus grows, you're going to fill this planter all the way full and even mound it a little bit. As the asparagus grows, just add a little bit of extra soil, and then you will put the typha over top. So if you want to put the typha on it now, you can, and then just pull it back to add soil as the asparagus grows. So everything's full up with typha. It's all good to go. And what's going to happen is we're going to be coming around, and at the end, we're going to come in and we're going to install your sign right here in the corner. We'll do that. We'll also inoculate your wine cap mushrooms in the square that's free right here, and put on your unique identifier tag and just check everything over. And then your tree will start to grow and prosper. We'll seed some white clover here to help that edge. That way you don't have to mow right up to your planter. You can mow up to the clover and allow the white clover to grow and add nitrogen to your edible ecosystem spot. So there's a how-to video on how to plant your edible ecosystem spot into your rustic cedar 2x6 planter, and in consideration of future expansion of your site if you continue to work with this program and transition your yard to edible biodiversity abundance and your community as well. So we'll see you out there.